the Myles Garrett sweepstakes continues, and Philly's name continues to be on the hot seat in that regard. And we got to take care of Zach Bond and see who's next. I trust that Howie's going to keep Zach Bond in the building. Uh, I am of the belief that Milt Williams, Josh Sweat, or both of them will be gone. Um, and then I think Mekhi Becton, even though he will have the opportunity to get his bag, I think he will elect to stay based on his history, based on his past in New York and what how they treated him and stuff like that. He seems to me as a guy that would choose environment over anything else, because the right environment with a guy with his type of personality makes a big difference.
I
And
agree.
in New York, that was not the right environment. And he said it on many occasions. You saw how emotional he was when we made the playoffs. We hadn't even done anything. We just made the playoffs, man. So
Right. Winning the division, right?
yeah. So he's somebody that would choose the culture over the bag. So I'm thinking we'll get him on some type of quote unquote hometown discount. And then we just trying to reload, man. We ain't trying to remake. We ain't trying to repair. We just trying to reload.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. You said something really interesting that stood out to me, right? The Debo Samuel move by the Washington Commanders. I have a live stream later on with my guy Philly 500. We're going to tap into a lot of different things that a lot of people are trying to do to quote unquote keep up with the Eagles or try to take out the reigning champs. But
Right.
that's pretty much where the Philadelphia Eagles stand, right? You're going to see a lot of people take their best shot at you. You're going to see a lot of teams try to either replicate what you've done or try to build something that can offset what you've done. A lot of Commanders trading for Debo Samuel. I would say that move is maybe about a day late and a dollar short. They did get him for value, though. I will say the reward far outweighs the risk. They only traded a 5th round pick for him. And if you can get a healthy Debo Samuel all year long, that's going to be a huge boost to their receiver core. It's going to be a huge boost to their overall offense over there in Washington. If you pair him with Terry McLaurin, and if Zach Ertz can manage to stay healthy like he did all last year, with Jaden Daniels assumingly taking the next step as his career progresses, that's going to be a really, really interesting offense to look out for if you're a Philadelphia Eagles fan. But regardless, though, the reality is Debo Samuel has battled injuries over the past several years, or the past few years, the past couple seasons. He's dealt with some nagging injuries, hasn't really been able to stay healthy. One of the things that stood out to me about his game over the past couple years is his lack of route creativity. After the catch, he's a beast. After the catch, he's a beast. But the problem is he's been dropping catches. His route discipline hasn't been there. At some point, he's been a turbulent force in locker rooms when things haven't really gone his way or whenever he's faced some sort of adversity. So, again, I'm curious to see what a change of scenery does for a guy like Debo Samuel. Again, very talented brother, but when it comes to being a pure wide receiver, I never looked at him as somebody who was in the top 10. When it comes to being a weapon, though, he's definitely been one of the top 10 weapons in football throughout the duration of his career. And we'll see what the Commanders and Cliff Kingsbury have in store for a guy like Debo Samuel. We saw that they like to throw a lot of screens. They do a lot of jet sweeps. They like to throw a lot of short passes to try to get the ball in their playmakers' hands as quickly as possible, right? But I think that plays right into what the Philadelphia Eagles do well. The Philadelphia Eagles are prone. They've shown over the course of the season that even if they can't get pressure, they're one of the most efficient defenses in football, and they're one of the best defenses, if not the best defense, when it comes to defending the short passes, such as bubble screens and so on and so forth. You saw it in the Super Bowl, you saw it in the you saw it in the NFC Championship, you saw it all season long. So again, whatever you think Debo does well or what he will do well for the Commanders, best believe the Philadelphia Eagles have an answer for that.
Yeah, what happens to Austin Eckler? Because that's basically his spot. So I don't know what his contract situation is, but now you got Austin Eckler, Robinson, and Debo back there. So just with that, I would think that they would put Debo as a slot receiver. And Eckler can still, they can still do the 2 running back thing out of the backfield. So that leaves them with some interesting options. But on paper and on field is 2 totally different things. So we'll see how that all shakes out.
And on top of that, they are picking up, I believe, what his $22 million salary, something like that. They're picking up a lot of that money, hence why they got him for so cheap. And you know, the 49ers knew that they really didn't want to move on with him. So it's they were kind of in a situation like kind of where the Rams are with Cooper Kupp. The Rams know that they want to move on, but they want to try to get something for him. But teams know that you're going to have to cut him. So their mindset is, why give you something where I could just be patient and then take my chances on the open market and probably get them for cheaper. So the 49ers didn't want to get caught in that situation. They wanted to move over from Debo as soon as possible, and they pretty much took whatever the best deal they can get for him, and that's a 5th round pick. And again, we'll see how things turn out. We'll see how it affects their overall mode of operations. What's interesting is, I believe between Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin, and Debo Samuel, I think the cap hit between those guys is like $61 million or something like that. Yeah. And between Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert, I think it's $66 million. Am I off when I say that? Am I adding in one more person too many, or?
No, that sounds about right. I don't know the exact numbers, but at the end of the day, they got money to play with. They did get the raise in the cap this year, so that bumped everybody up about what, 19 million. So yeah, you know, this is how he sees it, man. This is what he does best. He can juggle these contracts, juggle these draft picks. I would be very surprised if we end up picking at 32. You know, he gonna wheel and deal to get his, you know, moving on up. I got a feeling that we might lose one of them young secondary pieces like Sidney Brown or somebody like that, or Eli Ricks.
You mean in the trade package?
Yeah, in the trade package. I got a feeling that I think Bryce Huff is out of here. I think he's part of a trade package, and possibly Jalen Hunt. Jalen Hunt paid dividends, and he looked like a steal coming from a 1AA school. So he shows some good promise, and that looks good on the stat sheet, and his price will be cheap. So he's good trade bait too. I would not want to see him go. I would rather keep him, but you know, we'll see what's going to happen. It's going to be very interesting the closer we get to the draft. I've been watching the combine. At this point, I look at the combine like, what's the point?
Yo, you know what I mean? It's funny you said that, because, and I definitely want to address some of the things you said prior to, but we're going to have plenty of time to do so. But to your point about the combine, I was watching it, or Thursday and Friday. I didn't get a chance to really lock in on Saturday. I may watch a little bit today, but I was sitting there watching it, and there was a moment where I attempted to try to use it as an opportunity to get familiar with a lot of these prospects.
Yeah.
And you see names, all that kind of stuff, but ultimately I found myself taking notes, and I'm like, what am I taking notes on, really?
Yeah. What's the point?
What am I doing except just writing guys' names down? What am I doing?
Exactly. The only purpose, in my opinion, is you want to see the 40, right? Everybody wants to see is the basic skills, the 40, the 3-cone drill, the bench press, the vertical leap, and the long jump, the standing broad jump, right? Then you kind of mix and match the I don't know what they call it, like the figure 8 thing where the guys run around the circle and pick up the sock.
I think that's valuable.
Yeah, that's a good drill. When the running backs are running, hopping over the dummies on the floor, take that out. Let the running backs run a pass pattern and catch the ball in space. You can keep that. Everything that the quarterbacks and the wide receivers do, keep that, because that is that's what you want to see. You want to see. No, they're not going to throw a long ball, but what you want to do is see if a quarterback can throw to a guy that he doesn't know and still put the ball where it needs to be. You don't know his speed. You're not comfortable with him. So the quarterbacks and the receivers are good like that. The running backs is just okay. Even when they do like that gauntlet drill, running down the line and catching balls from both sides,
right?
I'm like, okay. I want to see how fast they go down the line and how tight they stay to that line. I don't need to see that, because when they on the field, you're going to have to move, and you're going to have to, are they running a rub route? Is the zone smaller than it should be? Is somebody breaking off a coverage and maybe you need to drift behind them? There's too many things that happen in the game to have those black and white drills go off. And like most of that stuff, you're looking at it and it's like, that's a waste of time. That's
Yeah.
a really waste of time. The D line and the O line, you can get a little bit more out of it because you can see their quickness. You see D line and O line. You don't give a damn about their 40. You give a damn about their 10-yard split.
I was just about to say that. When it comes to D line, I care about 10-yard split. I don't care about nothing else because they're operating in a short box in general.
Exactly.
I care about that 10-yard split, which is going to tell me get off that burst. How quickly can you get from point A to point B in a short amount of time, or how quickly can you get from a 10-yard distance in a short amount of time? Right.
Exactly.
There is. I will say this though. Out of all the position groups I've seen thus far, I've enjoyed watching the defensive backs because, to me at least, what they do what they do with the cones and on the field and things of that nature, right? Obviously, like you said, the 40 and all that kind of stuff is valuable. But what I enjoy watching them is seeing them do the on-field drills because, at least to me, I'm able to see how quickly they can sink those hips, turn those hips, get in and out of phase, track the ball, things of that nature, right? I think that still has value.
Absolutely. I think it does get a little bit watered down when they got them running and then they tell them to look at the ball. But to me, that is practical. That's practical practice. I like to see the defensive ends because, especially after we saw what Nolan Smith did this year, like you said, to get off that first 10 yards, that explosion. That first 10 yards tells me how quickly an athlete can accelerate. So, you getting all these guys running these 4.3s, these low 4.3s. Most of them were DBs. He had a couple running backs in there. The DBs is where that fast, that turnover time. And you saw with Quinyon and when they were showing a lot of film on Travis Hunter, man, that closing speed is what you need for DBs. That closing speed, when they turn that head around, locate the ball. Now, Deion Sanders was a master of this because he was so fast. And also, people forget Deion was ridiculously fast, and Deion is what, 6'2", 6'3" or something like that. Deion was tall, had long arms, so that closing speed makes all the difference in the world, man. I totally forgot Quinyon ran a sub 4.4. Quinyon was like a 4.37.
Yeah.
So Quinyon was a 4.37. I think I can't remember if it was Keely Ringo or Eli Ricks. I think it was Keely Ringo. Keely Ringo was a 4.3 guy too. So we have a lot of speed in our secondary. And that's the type of stuff that makes a difference. You saw what Quinyon did. You saw what Coop did. And now they got another year under their belt, knowing how to play the position, knowing what they can do and what not to do. So, but back to the combine, man, it's some of the stuff is just for fluff because they got to fill time, and I hope they really dial it back on some of the stuff that they're doing because a lot of that stuff is unnecessary. You know what I mean? And I was looking at Mina Kimes gave a comment. She took a picture at the combine, but she was like, missed all the workouts. Hopefully the tape speaks for itself. And I'm like, exactly. All these guys are going to go up and down the charts. But ultimately it comes down to, did you watch his tape? What did if he ran a 4.3 at the combine, what did he look like on the field? If that defensive end, what's that dude's name? I forget what his name is. The dude ran a 4.37 or is it a 4? He ran a low 4.4, I believe, at defensive end. And I was like, this dude is ridiculous. But what did he look like on tape? So, again, using Nolan Smith as an example, that first year, Nolan Smith was still lean, still very fast, but not being heavy enough. His body couldn't take the damage because his shoulder was popping out every other week.
Right.
This year, he was more durable, at least all the way up to the first half of the Super Bowl, and then he played the second half with a bum shoulder, and still paid dividends. So I look at stuff like that, man. How can that stuff be applicable in the game in real time. I want to see how does that translate? And it doesn't always translate the same. Lucky for us, we've had guys where that speed, that power, that get off translated 1-to-1 at the NFL level.
Yeah, you mentioned guys like Quinyon and Keely, right? Quinyon ended up running a 4.33, and
That's
Keely
fast, man.
Keely ran like a 4.37, 4.36, something like that. So,
Dude, sub 4.4
yeah,
is ridiculous, bro.
exactly. And what doesn't get talked about enough? It's funny. A lot of these, what the Eagles have done. A lot of these teams are trying to replicate. Like I said, they're trying to find their Quinyon and Cooper DeJean in the draft. They're trying to find
Right.
those two draft picks that can make an impact early. It's rare when you have those situations, let alone one comes from Toledo and one comes from Iowa, right? But Quinyon, long arms, bigger body, right? Very physical, but has that speed, that ranginess to keep up with anybody. Keely Ringo, I'm really curious to see what the next step is for him in his career, because has the speed, has the athleticism you like, has the length you like. I think the technique just has to sharpen a little bit. He was a little bit raw at the time. He's gotten 2 years under his belt. It's going to be interesting to see how he competes going forward, depending on what the Eagles do at that position. If Slade comes back, if they bring back Isaiah Rodgers and have him and Ringo compete, we'll never know. But you're right. The bottom line is, when it comes to this combine, certain things have become obsolete. They become useless.
Yeah.
A lot of these guys are opting out of the combine because they look at it from the perspective of, I played all this football. What the hell am I running circles for on somebody else's turf and potentially hurt myself? Some of these guys already had to sit down because of a hamstring tweak, or they did this or they did that. So, I mean, look, I understand the lesser prospects, right? Guys who are probably going to be mid to late round picks. You want to do the combine. You want to do anything possible to up your value. You want to do anything to give a team something good to latch onto your name. But if you're like guys who are guaranteed to go on those, for guys pretty much guaranteed to go in the first round, even if you're guaranteed to go top 50, you may ask yourself, what can I really gain from this combine? What can I really gain? So again, I think it is going to be interesting to see what the NFL does going forward with the combine, because the last thing you want is for the combine to become obsolete like the Pro Bowl. That's the
They
last
just
thing.
got to streamline it.
Yeah, they just got to take away some of that stuff that's usually, trim the fat, basically.
Yeah, or put something different in there. Put something a little bit better. I don't need to see 20 minutes of of running backs, doing, get your high knees over the dummies. Like, that's the stuff we do in Little League. And I understand what it's there for, but I don't need to see that. That's what the tape is for. Put something else in there that's a little bit more applicable to what you see on the field, because some of the stuff I'm like, come on, man. Next, keep it moving.
I feel you on that.
But they making money off of it now, because you see,
sure.
They had David Spade on there. I was like, what the hell David Spade got to do with the NFL Combine? Promoting the podcast and stuff like that. And I'm like, come on now.
The NFL is big, Marcus. Don't you dare play simple, my friend. The NFL is big business, man. The NFL was a 365-day conglomerate. They found a way. They found a way to monopolize your time, but much better than basketball can.
Yeah. I wonder how much the commercials cost.
Exactly. 365 days a year. Soon as the season ends, you got people talking about the combine, free agency, the draft, the schedule release, mandatory minicamp, OTAs, picking up fifth-year options, like training camp. Like, the NFL was a 365-day-a-year job. There's so much content out there if you know what you're doing. That's why I said to you earlier, this is the time where the real separate from the fake. So much more to discuss, so much more to get into, so much more to peel the layers back on. And I'm really excited to see where the show goes, where today's show goes, because you mentioned something earlier. You mentioned how there's a chance how we could be gearing up for a big swing, and we need to be on the lookout, or at least prepare ourselves for a potential the potential loss of other guys, such as Sidney Brown, Jalix Hunt, or Eli Ricks, or even Keely Ringo, right? Just guys, the young guys that have some kind of value to some kind of team. I'll be honest with you. Excuse me. I'll be honest. I don't want to lose Jalix Hunt. right? As much as I love Sydney, I could probably wrap my mind around that one better. Wrap my mind around that one. But the Jalen Hunt one, I feel like that move would hurt you more than anything because this offseason, you're likely going to lose Josh Sweat. And again, you guys, I don't want to lose Sidney Brown. I like Sidney Brown a lot. I want him on his team. I really, really do. But if you had to ask me who would I rather keep, Jalen Hunt or Sidney Brown, I would much rather keep Jalen Hunt. And by the way, you guys, we are seeing your messages, but we are trying to run the show here. So just be patient. Nonetheless, I would much rather keep Jalen Hunt than Sidney Brown. That's just where I'm at with that because Jalen Hunt plays a much more higher value position than Sidney Brown does.
I agree.
And I feel like, honestly, what the Philadelphia Eagles have shown an ability to do, at least over the past couple of years, is find some pretty good depth pieces in the secondary, right? Eli Ricks, Tristan McCullum, Reed Blankenship, who was an undrafted guy who they turned into a starter, who earned his way into a starter, excuse me. You brought back CJ GJ, you drafted Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, guys like that. So Jalen Hunt, what he showed me in the second half of that season when BG went down is almost invaluable to me. I love his measurables. I love his athleticism. I love his desire to get better. I love his versatility. A guy who was a former DB turned edge rusher. So that tells me that he has a commitment to his body. He has a commitment to getting better and learning. I feel like he hasn't even scratched the surface of what he can be. And we saw what he was able to do in that Super Bowl. I mean, he was beating out Bryce Huff for snaps.
Yeah.
A rookie was beating out a guy that was making $17 million a year. He was beating him out for snaps. And again, BG's going to retire. That's pretty much a foregone conclusion. BG's going to retire. You're likely going to lose Josh Sweat. So that's two bodies you lose on the edge. That leaves Nolan Smith and Bryce Huff, and 9 times out of 10 you trade him. I just don't think it. I don't see the Philadelphia Eagles moving on from Jalen Hunt, a guy with that much upside and that much athleticism at the position.
Nah, I agree with you 100%, man. Jalen Hunt paid dividends. We still got Ojomo back there. Bill Williams is about to get his bag. He earned it. Josh Sweat is about to get his bag. He earned it. Josh Sweat already gave us the hometown discount. So I'm not faulting nobody for going to get their money. Josh Sweat gambled and won. He gave the hometown discount, got a Super Bowl ring, and played enough to get his real payday. So I'm like, Josh Sweat, go get your money, man. You did the damn thing.
He gambled for sure, I mean? and he trusted the Eagles, right? They said, absolutely. Listen, we'll give you $10 million on the arm. You come back for us, we'll make it worth your while. Right. And he has a chance. He has a chance to probably get between. I say Sweat can probably get between. What was his last contract? I want to make sure I don't shortchange him. Let me see how much he's making on his last contract. The one before he signed the 1-year deal. I'm looking at it right now. Okay, so Josh Sweat contract history. Okay, he signed a 3-year, $40 million contract in 2021. That was an average salary of $13.3 million. I think Josh Sweat has earned himself a contract at least between 16.5 to 19.5, maybe 20.
Right, and that's going to go. That'll fluctuate because it all depends on what they sign.
His age matters too. His age matters.
Well, yeah, but my point is it all depends on what his signing bonus is going to be. Because it'll be, a team, if their financial situation is right, will give him a huge signing bonus with a minimal contract. But he going to take that money to the bank, so he'd be up for it. So there's different ways to do that. But at the end of the day, he earned it. He earned his bag. And I kind of feel bad and a little bit conflicted because that's what Hassan Reddick should have done. That is exactly what Hassan Reddick should have done. So can you imagine if we would have had, Nolan Smith doing what he's doing and Hassan Reddick on the other side and Zach Bond was in the back plus Jalen Carter? Dude, That would have been ridiculous. And what Milt Williams was doing.
Yeah.
But
I think to your point, I understand where you're coming from in terms of just that pass rush ability, right? Just how lethal it would have been. But my mind goes beyond just the pass rush when I think about Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat. I know Hassan Reddick is a better pass rusher, but I think Josh Sweat is a better all-around guy at the position. The length, the size, I think he's better in run defense, which I think a lot of people don't put enough stock in when it comes to Josh Sweat. You know, my man S. Blunt here, our guy S. Blunt, he did have a few weeks where his production did go down a little bit. But regardless, though, Josh Sweat had 8 sacks in 2024. He was way more efficient. He played less snaps. He did what he did in the Super Bowl. He did go a little cold throughout the playoffs, you know, wild card round, divisional, NFC championship. He did go a little cold from a pass rush perspective, but from a run defense perspective, you know, setting the edge is very important in this league.
absolutely.
These quarterbacks are faster. These running backs are more dynamic. You know, these teams are running these bubble screens and these jet sweeps now. They're getting more creative behind the line of scrimmage and getting the balls in their playmakers' hands quickly. Being able to set the edge as an edge rusher is very important. And, you know, I think Josh Sweat, although he maybe doesn't have the 15, 14 sack year that a lot of us would like to see him have, which would definitely help him in negotiations, I think him having the season he did, the 8 sacks on 622 defensive snaps, 60% of the snaps played, doing what he did in the playoffs in a big moment in a big game, how lethal he was, how dominant he was, and the ability to set the edge, his measurables, and 27, he's at a sweet spot. He could probably get a nice 3-year deal for somebody.
Absolutely.